I have to live every day with knowing my cancer can come back.
Yeah.
I have my scans every year and I don't focus on it because if I did, I would go insane.
Yeah.
But it's like I tell people the only analogy I can truly come up with for that, and I think other cancer survivors can probably relate, is when you're a little kid and you're afraid to go in the room because the lights are out and you're afraid the boogeyman's in there.
Yeah.
You live like that for the rest of your life when you know your cancer can come back.
Welcome back to the show. My name is Remington Ramsey, and this is the Real Producers Podcast, where we're connecting, elevating, and inspiring. Today, my guest is Pam Socha out of Cincinnati, Ohio. How you doing, Pam?
Great. How are you?
Great. You were working with Pat Braddock, going to be featured here in a bit. Your story is inspiring, to say the least, and comes with a little bit more traumatic events than most, even since the ones that we've been on the show with some of the past people getting shot and overcoming cancer. It seems like you have a lot of those podcasts all in one. So this is going to be fun to unfold. I say that with all sincerity and love. I mean, it seems like you're in a great place now just from talking to you for a few minutes.
Yes, definitely. There's no reason to get down. I'm still alive.
I said it in the pre-show, but I feel like you're a real life survivor of your own Final Destination movie, where life is just trying to get you, especially early on. You were first diagnosed with kidney cancer at the age of 35 back in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And you beat it. And then you would think, hey, that's all that life has to throw at me. I got this. And then more happened. Can you walk me through that 6-week period of time?
Okay. Well, the head injuries were just a couple of years ago. The histoplasmosis was right after not right after. 2005 was kidney cancer. And then 2013, I had histoplasmosis.
Goodness.
Yes. So that was from tearing down a chicken coop. And it's very common in the Cincinnati area. And it was brought in by pigeons years ago. I had never heard of it until I was diagnosed with it. But then...
And what's it called again?
Histoplasmosis.
Okay. And it's specifically from... You got this from the chicken coop. You got this from the birds.
Anyone can get it from mowing grass or anything. It's literally from bird poop.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, it's in the air.
And what happens when you get that?
Well, it can get into your bloodstream. It can kill you. But they thought it was metastatic renal cell because I had the 2 spots in my lung that were red as tumors. And so they removed part of my lung and it ended up being histo.
So they didn't know originally when you had it, they thought it was part of, maybe something you were battling from your cancer bout or something.
Yes, they thought that it was metastatic renal cell.
Wow. And so at what point did they realize that's not what it was and get you the proper treatment?
When they had me in the OR and removed part of my lung, they went ahead and biopsied it right then.
Wow. You've had, and you already kind of gave a little hint to what we're going to get to with traumatic brain injuries, but you, was this one of the, up until that point, was that a really scary time for you, or were you at peace?
You mean after the histo?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty much always at peace because I always tell myself, if this is the worst thing I'm going through in life, then I'm good because there are so many people doing worse. But with the head injuries, I'll just tell you really quick the story. So my uncle passed away. We were at my cousin's after the funeral. She asked me to put something in the pantry. I bent down to put something in the pantry and a waffle iron falls from the top of the pantry and hits me in the back of the head.
Oh my gosh.
Gave me a concussion. So 2 weeks later, we're building a new house. We built a barn ahead of time to store all of our stuff in. We live in the country and we have a barn cat. She knocked a sofa table from the rafters and it got me right on my orbital. You could see my orbital bone right in the eye.
Wow.
And it was disgusting. But so I'm finally healing from that. And it was a Sunday. I said to my husband, let's go to the home and garden show and just, see if we can get some ideas for the house. It was cold. My husband and my youngest son and I all were walking to go across the catwalk. And I looked up to see how many stairs there were. I had my hands in my pocket, and I guess I tripped on that very first step. I remember trying to get my hands out of my pockets, but that's really the last thing I remember. I face planted right between my eyes, but it snapped my neck. And
oh my gosh.
I had 30 something stitches in between my eyes, and then they had to fuse together C4, 5, and 6.
And this was all in a matter of 6 weeks, these
all
three.
in a matter of 6 weeks. Yes.
And you think the third one happened because of the first two?
Yes, that's what the doctor said. They thought I probably lost my balance because of that.
Man.
Yes.
Well, at what, so after that 6 week period, were all three, because one was on the front of your face, what was on the back of your head? Was it concussion protocol for weeks after? And then
I had concussion therapy. Yes. They would have me look at a spot on the wall and say, tell me when you think your head is straight, and then hand me a mirror, and my head would be like,
oh man.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Was that scary for you?
It was, and it wasn't. I mean, we are a very dry, sarcastic sense of humor family. Like my parents, the big bubble things you blow up that kids bounce off of each other in the yard.
Oh yeah.
Like my parents live in Florida. They sent those to me.
When you were going through all this?
I was going through all of this.
Man, that is a sense of
bubble
humor.
wrap.
I'm glad you have a sense of humor over this. I don't know what I'd be. I tell you what, I'd be getting rid of that cat. That'd be my first move.
She keeps the mice and things away. No, she's good. She's good with all that.
So did you use those toys, those blow up?
No, they're still in the box. I save them for my granddaughter.
So are you still in this? You still dealing with anything from those injuries, those specific injuries today?
Oh yeah. I actually was just at the doctor last week. So after the neck fusion, I kept telling the doctor something's wrong. I cannot swallow food. I was getting choked continuously. And he kept saying, oh, it's, just inflammation, whatever. Well, finally, after me complaining long enough, they said, you probably just need your esophagus stretched. Well, at this point, COVID had just started.
Yeah.
And I go in to have this done. The girl at the desk wrote my husband's phone number down. And the next thing I know, I'm coming to with a doctor in my face screaming, who did your neck surgery? And I'm, coming out of anesthesia. I'm trying to think. And he's like, they wrote your husband's phone number down wrong. We can't get a hold of him because he wasn't allowed in because of COVID.
Oh.
And he's like, your esophagus didn't need stretched. The hardware from your neck surgery is through your esophagus.
So you're listening to a doctor say this while you're dazed and confused coming out of anesthesia.
Yes. And it was insane.
Man.
Yeah. So
what happened?
I was taken to the hospital from there. And I never really get emotional. That was probably the most emotional I've ever been because with cancer and everything else, I just always try to be strong and just, I want everybody else to try to be calm. I don't want anyone to be upset because of me.
Yeah.
And they told my husband that it was only probably a 50% chance I would make it through this. And I said, can I just hug my boys?
Yeah.
And they said no. They said, we've already done the COVID test.
Oh, because it was during COVID. Man.
Yes. They said, I was in Westchester. They said, we're transporting you downtown. And there'll be there were two teams. There was a neurosurgery team and an ENT oncology team. It took them, that was on a Monday. It took them until my surgery was Friday morning to try to figure out exactly what they were going to do.
Yeah.
That was just to buy time. We knew I was going to have a much bigger surgery. So that was in June. And then fast forward, that was in June of 20. Fast forward March 5th of 21. You got me on video, so you can, I don't know how well you can see the scar here.
It's hard to see.
They took part of the artery, muscle, and tissue from there to go in and try to repair the esophagus.
Wow.
And it did not go as planned.
So when they do that, it's really it's like two surgeries.
Oh, yes. I was in the ICU for a week with that one. And then I had what they call a fistula in the front of my neck. And I could not have anything by mouth, water, nothing. My saliva came out the front of my neck as gross as that sounds.
Wow.
And I had to pack it all day, all the time. It was gross.
Yeah.
But that, that being said, the hardest part was not being able to, I mean, I wasn't hungry, but not being able to eat. You see people eating, and you think of things, it's like, oh my gosh, remember that candy bar when I was a kid? So you get online and you start searching, like, do they still
man,
have those? Let me order a case of
that's
those.
That's a mind battle.
It is.
How long did that go on for?
9 months.
9 months?
9 months I had the feeding tube. Yes. Man. So from March 5th until my final surgery, September 23rd of that year, I had 5 surgeries and then like 2 or 3 other procedures.
Did it ever get dark in that time? I mean,
Yes.
You seem like a very strong person. You've mentioned faith, and I imagine like it just wanting some type of normalcy, especially because this is happening during COVID. So the world's already messed up. You can't hug your kids because of the testing. I remember that was a big thing that was frustrating for especially older couples, being isolated as they're dying, cannot see their family.
Yes.
And so you've got 5 boys, and they're telling you 50-50. That would be really tough.
It was. At that point though, that's not when there was only one point in time I was really weak and really sick from all of this. Being on a feeding tube for 9 months, you lose a lot of weight. And I mean, the nutritionist had me putting baby food and baby cereals and all these different things through the feeding tube to try to keep some weight on.
Yeah.
I got to the point where I was just so weak that to make a long story short, it got infected, the fistula down here. And I had just come home from the hospital, maybe a couple of days. And my husband said, I'm going to call the doctor. He says, go in the other room and just try to relax. He said, like, turn your head around. So I went to do that. When I put my chin down towards my chest, it popped. And literally, as gross as it is, infection was pouring out. My mom was handing me washcloths and we were just catching this infection.
Man.
And so they, when I left, that we got ready to leave here, and I hugged my parents, and I never said it to them because I couldn't bring myself, but I hugged them a little longer and tighter. And in my mind, I was saying goodbye.
Man.
I was just like, this is it. And then we got in the car and I told my husband, I said, I'm ready to go. And he was like, no, you can't do that. And I was, I said, I'm tired. My body's tired. I'm tired of fighting. And, got to the hospital.
Low point.
Yeah. I told the doctor the same thing. I'm like, can you just let me go? And he's like, nope, not on my watch.
Man.
Yeah. But that was the only time I ever got like that.
Well, what's fascinating about this is a real estate podcast, and I think we just earned our explicit rating with that story. We didn't have to curse. We got there just by. No, but here's the thing: we have plenty of realtors who are on what Darren Hardy calls the entrepreneur roller coaster, right? Mm-hmm. And so we go through these classes and we sit through the meetings and we hop online because a lot of us go through bouts of struggling to find excitement, but then like to get the business and then to find purpose. And then you go through and you hear about people like you who go through things like this that are just so much more life-threatening and scary, and it really puts things in perspective. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it has for you, the ease of having a vocation that's just tough because you have to call people. And I don't want to simplify it. I know it's a little bit tougher than that, but being in real estate for 10 plus years, I've just seen that there are moments that kind of define you. And for you have 4 or 5 different moments that define you over the course of a very short period of time. What now? Like, do you use your story as motivation? I mean, I know you draw people like you in your sphere. Like, you're probably selling houses to people that are following your story, and you're finding hope and inspiration. Like, how do you use that to inspire others?
To inspire others, I mean, I treat people how I want to be treated, and I don't so much tell my story all the time. I think the biggest thing is, it actually goes back before what we've talked about. The whole reason I got into real estate. And that was because when I was 12, our house burned down and we lost everything. literally nothing left, no baby pictures, nothing. And as a kid, you're watching your parents and everything they've worked so hard for is gone in an instant. And then we lived in a hotel for a couple months, then an apartment until we found a new home. But I had only ever known that home.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you don't have that safety feeling, that place where you go to sleep at night, and that's your safe place from the world. And that's my big why. I want everyone to have that feeling of their safe place.
Your house burnt down when you were 12. We're going back through and rewatching This Is Us. Do you ever watch This Is Us?
Oh, yes. I love that show.
So, I mean, that's obviously a defining part of that show.
Yes.
Defining part of your life up until that point. Because, I mean, I wonder, and maybe you have thoughts on this, having such a traumatic thing happening at the age of 12, I wonder if that prepared you for tough things like hearing the words you have cancer. I mean, I know it does. I wonder what you would attribute how much of your ability to cope with that from already going through a traumatic event.
It very well could be. I mean, I think so. I really do, because I often think that I've been put through these things so that I can help others. Like, I couldn't tell you how many people will refer someone to call me because they've been diagnosed with cancer. And, they'll just call strangers. And by the time we hang up, they're a friend.
Yeah.
But that's just the way I've always been.
What caused the house fire? Do you know?
Yes, my parents, it was a 100-year-old house at that time.
Yeah.
My parents have never paid a penny of interest on anything in their lives. Okay. So they did one room at a time. They'd save the money until they got their bedroom was the last room. They slept on their new bed 4 nights. And back in the day, they heated with sawdust and insulation.
Okay.
In newspaper, sawdust and newspaper. Or insulated with. And my dad, our bathroom pipes had frozen. So my dad put a little heater under the back of the house to thaw the pipes. And he worked third shift. He went to work and the neighbors called. They said the outside of your house is on fire. It had smoldered in between the walls all day.
Wow.
Yes.
But no one was home? No one was hurt?
Oh, we were home. And it was the night before my birthday. It was January 18th. My birthday's the 19th. It was Martin Luther King Day. So we didn't have school the next day. So luckily, my brother and I weren't in bed yet. And we all got out safely, but we lived in the country. There were no fire hydrants. They had to bring pumpers in. It was like 30 something below zero at the wind chill. And so it was all over the news back then. There were like 54 firemen on the scene.
Wow.
And it was
and you lost everything. You didn't take anything with you.
No, we couldn't. No.
Maybe I'm just thinking, I mean, these are the kinds of questions I'm asking myself when I'm watching This Is Us. So tell me if I'm overstepping my boundaries here, but what is it like when you lose everything? How do you rebuild? How do you like little things like just clothes and chairs and where you're living? I mean, finding out where you're going to sleep next is, I guess, the next thing. But then where you eat and what you wear, like, what does that look like?
That is exactly my why, because when you have to have those things to feel safe in this life. And like you're saying, you're thinking about where these things come from because we're so used to having them. I mean, we just take it for granted. And then when it's all gone, it's like, whoa, but people were amazing. Donating clothes, things like that. Back then, my mom worked like a different plant from, I think, Pennsylvania, sent this huge box of food. And our house burnt in January. They sent Easter baskets and Easter candy when it came time. I mean, things like that. Just people were awesome.
Wow.
Night of the fire, the Red Cross came out and they gave us vouchers to go to Sears and get shoes and clothes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you had in your was there anything that was really special to you that you lost in the fire that you didn't realize until a couple of days later, and then you got emotional about, or anything physical that you wish you still had today?
Not that I wish I still had today, but you'll laugh but I'm 54 years old. So I'm telling you, I'm dating myself. Our house burned in January, the Christmas, a couple weeks earlier, I had gotten the Rick Springfield album. It melted. So if that tells you anything. Oh yeah,
Man.
I'm so upset over that.
Okay. I imagine at the age of 12, you could probably get over most of the material items. I wonder if your parents had something that was passed down to them that was
Oh
pretty
yes.
tough to get over,
Yeah, there were
losing in a
things.
house fire. Have
Yes.
you had we've had a couple house fires within the real estate community here in Indianapolis in the last 5 years. Is that anything that you've come across in Cincinnati as you've been selling real estate? Have you come across any loss like that?
Not that I can think of.
It seems pretty rare. I mean, there's definitely
Yeah.
parts of the country where, I mean, especially in California where it's like a pretty
Yes.
devastating, but yeah, wow. Um, your story and the way you have um, come through it all and the way you think and the way you talk is inspiring in itself. Is there
Thank you.
anything that you have taken away from all the things that are happening and what you're doing right now in real estate that I mean, there's a lot of realtors close proximity to you and they're watching all how you're overcoming things in your personal life, but then you found a way to have your best year ever, I believe, last year in real
Yes.
estate after
Mhm.
all of this, after COVID. And so what do you do personally to continue trucking forward when life seems to be trying to drag you down?
I say what I said earlier. I literally say to myself, if this is the worst thing I have to go through, I'm good.
Mm.
I say that every time they were taking me into a surgery. I literally say it to myself every time. Now, my husband and boys, they do it a totally different way, which is kind of comical. But like I said, we are a very sarcastic, dry sense of humor family. But when I get out of surgery and I'm in recovery, my husband always takes a picture of me unconscious and sends it to the boys and says, she made it. So two of my sons got married during all of that, one in Jackson Hole, one on a train at the Cuyahoga National Forest in Northern
Wow.
Ohio. Um, but like through all that, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it because I had the feeding tube and, it was just a lot. I was really sick. But my middle son, he's the one that got married in Jackson Hole. He had a Mother's Day gift sent to me. And he calls the second son in line and says, go over to mom and dad's and make sure you FaceTime when mom opens her gift. And he took the picture that my husband sent him with feeding tube coming out of my neck, unconscious, and had it made into a huge blanket. The picture, I'm thinking, can you imagine what the person printing that thought?
Do you use it?
Yeah, I took it to his wedding.
Nice. Put it up on display. I'll show you.
Yes.
That's too good. Well, one quote that I'd like to bring out from when we met you earlier is nothing seems very difficult to me anymore. That's something you said. Nothing seems very difficult to me anymore. I can see why. It's already happened. But in closing, can you kind of give us your thoughts on that quote? Nothing seems very difficult to me anymore. Once you have things put in perspective to where you almost lose your life, you have a lot of things happen in such a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
What are you worried? I mean, maybe it changes. Like for me, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't be worried about those things happening anymore because I know I can overcome them. But then also, like, is there a piece of you that's like, what more could happen to me? I mean, it's just been such a full life.
Well, I have to live every day with knowing my cancer can come back.
Yeah.
I have my scans every year and I don't focus on it because if I did, I would go insane.
Yeah.
But it's like I tell people the only analogy I can truly come up with for that, and I think other cancer survivors can probably relate, is when you're a little kid and you're afraid to go in the room because the lights are out and you're afraid the boogeyman's in there.
Yeah.
You live like that for the rest of your life when you know your cancer can come back. That's the boogeyman. But you can't focus on it or it'll eat you up.
Well, this has been eye-opening and just fantastic story. Pam Socha in Cincinnati, Ohio. This has been the Real Producers Podcast. I appreciate you being on and sharing your story. Please join us next time. We are in 130 markets and looking to grow. So if you have anyone that you would like to send our way, we're looking to be in your market. Pam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Remington. It was very nice to meet you.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks.